Fala galera do canal Fute Rápido, me chamo Julien e o vídeo de hoje será sobre o conflito entre Israel e Hamas. Eu resolvi trazer um vídeo da Al Jazeera que traz um pouco um apanhado geral sobre tudo isso que está acontecendo. Mas deixe seu like e inscreva-se no nosso canal para ajudar na notificação e valeu!
An unprecedented military operation by Hamas and a colossal failure of Israeli intelligence. It's been by far the deadliest day in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in 50 years. Well, right now, more than 2 million residents of Gaza are spending their night in darkness and terror. These are live pictures from Gaza. Well, just moments ago, Israel launched another airstrike on Gaza. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has asked Gazans who are under Israel's land, air and sea blockade to, quote, leave the territory now. He's vowed to turn Hamas sites into rubble in a war he says he's determined to win. So far, more than 230 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli airstrikes. Well, inside Israel, gun battles have been continuing for hours between Hamas fighters and Israeli forces. The death toll there stands at 250. In the southern city of Sderot, Palestinian fighters seized a police station. Israeli forces demolished part of the building with a bulldozer. Well, as night fell, Israel said it was engaged in gun battles in 22 locations. Al Jazeera's Ressel Serdar takes us through a day of extraordinary developments.
An unprecedented Palestinian attack on Israel. Hamas says it fired as many as 7,000 short and long-range rockets from Gaza into Israeli territory. Shortly afterwards, the Qassam brigades, the enormous military wing, launched a ground assault, with fighters breaching the border fence into Israel, some using paragliders. Hamas says the offensive is in response to the desecration of the Al-Aqsa Mosque and what it calls the crimes of Israel's occupation.
The time has come to draw the line, for the enemy to understand their time is up and they can't keep going without consequences. We are announcing an operation called Al-Aqsa Floods. In the first part of it, 5,000 rockets have been fired. It is the time to unite, all the Arab and Islamic powers, to overthrow the Israeli occupation.
Members of the Islamic Jihad armed group in Gaza answered the call to arms. Scenes emerged of Palestinian fighters attacking Israeli military checkpoints, looting, seizing and burning vehicles, and taking many Israeli soldiers and civilians prisoner.
This is the battle of not only the Palestinians or the Gazans. It is the battle of all the Arab and Muslim nations, simply for the reason that it is the battle for Palestine. It is the battle for Jerusalem. It is the battle for the Al-Aqsa Mosque.
The Erez border crossing between Gaza and Israel has also been breached, and the member of the Qassam brigades fought with Israeli forces at a police station in the city of Sderot. Israel says hundreds of its citizens have been killed and many more injured. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke of a state of war, calling out military reservists and declaring a 48-hour civil emergency.
We will take revenge for all the young people who lost their lives. We will target all of Hamas's positions. We will turn Gaza into a deserted island. To the citizens of Gaza I say, you must leave now. We will target each and every corner of the Strip.
Israel's multiple airstrikes on the Gaza Strip have already claimed hundreds of Palestinian lives and injured more than 1,000. One of the strikes hit the 11-story Palestine Tower, just meters away from Al Jazeera's bureau, where the media offices and lawyers were located. First, a warning strike, and a few minutes later, complete destruction. It is the Israeli-Palestinian conflict's most significant escalation in years, with a rising death toll on both sides. Where and how it will end, it's too soon to say. Ressel Serdar, Al Jazeera.
So let's get some live updates from Al Jazeera correspondents joining us this hour. John Hendren is in Washington, D.C. But first, let's talk to Willem Barks in West Jerusalem. Willem, sir, the Israeli army says fighting is still taking place in the south. Just bring us up to date, will you, on what's happening in Sderot?
Well, we had these 3,500 rockets over the course of the day landing, trying to land at least in parts of Israel, fired from Gaza, according to Israeli authorities. You had all these gunmen entering up to 22 different locations outside the Gaza Strip, some of them more than 20 kilometers from the border between Gaza and Israel. And over the course of the night, according to Israeli military officials, there have still been a number of gunmen holed up in some of the kibbutzim, the communities on the edge of Gaza, many of them holding hostages. And in the instance in Sderot you just mentioned there, that was a police office that was held by militants for many, many hours, surrounded by Israeli police and military forces. Eventually, over the last couple of hours, Israeli officials saying that they have taken control of that police station in Sderot and have killed 10 militants involved in holding on to it throughout much of the day.
And Willem, what's the likelihood now then of an Israeli ground incursion into Gaza? I mean, we've seen Israel do this in past Gaza wars, and it's extremely costly in lives on both sides.
Over the last few hours, we've seen huge numbers of heavy weaponry, including tanks and artillery, being moved south down towards the area around Gaza. The Israeli military has warned Israeli civilians to stay away from that region. It is now under military control. We've heard from Israeli officials they've been calling up thousands of reservists, hoping to call up many thousands more. This is a war, as Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister here in Israel, has called it. He has vowed to turn Gaza into an island of ruins in an address to the Israeli public earlier this evening. And what's obviously very striking about how that will be accomplished is the fact that there are so many hostages held by Hamas, according to their official leadership, inside the Gaza Strip, and that will make it incredibly complicated as an operation, whether it's by air or by ground, to try and take back those hostages inside hostile territory.
All right, Willem Marks, live for us there in West Jerusalem. Willem, thank you for that. Let's go live now to John Hendren. He's in Washington, D.C. John, so U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, he's been on the phone to regional leaders as well as both the Palestinians and Israelis. Washington says it wants to de-escalate, but it's still pledging its support for Israel, isn't it?
That's right. In the U.S., there is universal support being expressed for Israel. Blinken has been on the phone with the foreign ministers of Egypt, Turkey, the president of the Palestinian Authority, and in the last couple of hours, he's talked to Mohammed al-Thani, or at least we were told that he has talked to Mohammed al-Thani, the prime minister and foreign minister of Qatar. And what he appears to be doing is trying to get anyone with any influence on Hamas to try to get them to draw back. The president of the United States as well has expressed unequivocal support for Israel in this conflict, as you might expect an American president to do. This is what he had to say.
Israel has the right to defend itself and its people. Full stop. There's never justification for terrorist attacks. And my administration's support for Israel's security is rock solid and unwavering. Let me say this as clearly as I can. This is not a moment for any party hostile to Israel to exploit these attacks to seek advantage. The world is watching.
Então, acho isso extremamente triste. Lembrando que essa é uma reportagem da Al Jazeera Internacional. Então, se vocês quiserem, eu posso trazer mais vídeos como esse. E deixe seu ponto de vista. O que você pensa sobre esse conflito? O que você acha sobre tudo isso? É isso e valeu!